In this video, I'll walk you through a full studio setup on MyMusicStaff. MyMusicStaff is going to help you stay organized, automate your business, and save so much time. There are a lot of features on MyMusicStaff, so it can feel a little bit overwhelming to get it set up initially, but that's what I'm here for. And speaking of saving time, let's hop over to my desk and get you started straight away. Click the link in the description, and this is my affiliate link. So if you click on that through me, I will get a free month of MyMusicStaff as well, and I thank you in advance. Go ahead and enter your information here. If you've already chosen your business name, which hopefully you have, go ahead and enter that here. And if you need help choosing a business name, I have a video for that. We're going to select It's Just Me because we are a one-person studio, and then click Create My Teacher Account. The first thing you'll see is a pop-up in the lower right-hand corner inviting you to add some students, and that is exactly what we are going to do first. Note that if you have a lot of students and you are importing from an existing spreadsheet, MyMusicStaff allows you to do that as well. We're going to assume you just have a couple students and you're kind of starting from scratch, so we're going to enter them manually. In the left menu bar, select Students. Enter the student's first name and last name. Younger students will not have an email address or a phone number, and that's okay, you can leave those blank. We do want to click the Show Additional Details. Always click the Show Additional Details because I think these are important and I wish that they weren't hidden. Here I like to enter any preferences as far as pronouns go. I like to put in the birthday right away because I'm definitely going to want to know that later on and I don't want to miss their birthday. I also highly recommend putting in the date of their first lesson because MyMusicStaff will remind you when they have taken lessons for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and it's kind of fun to celebrate those little anniversaries. So don't skip this step. This is a new family, so we're going to enter in the parents' information. You do need to have at least one parent email address. I know it says optional, but it really isn't, and one parent phone number at the very least. Always check SMS capable for any mobile numbers. Just in case you want to text later on, you'll need that checked. Later on, I'm going to show you how to change your teacher default so that this will automatically default to your most common length of lesson, your most common type of lesson. But for now, we're entering this manually because this is our very first time entering a student. So we're going to leave it at lesson, 30 minutes. Right now, it defaults to billing per lesson, but we want to change that to billing per month. And let's say we're going to charge $100 a month. I like to enter things in the notes section that I might want to reference later on, something important about the student or the family if they have a younger sibling. I like to just make a note of their name because A, they might be a future student of mine, and B, it just helps me to be more personable when the family visits. We are going to go ahead and set up automatic invoicing right now, and you can always change this later on. For the first month, because we are starting mid-month, I'm just going to leave all this the way it defaults. And I'll show you how to set up your automatic invoicing for future months later on in this video. I put in a due date and I'm going to leave this at normal. I like to include previous balance and payments on the invoice, so if they have a credit on their account, it'll show up as a negative balance, or if they have a balance from the previous month. I don't like creating invoices if nothing's owed. I think that's kind of silly. And I do like to automatically send the invoice on the invoice date, and that way I don't have to go in and email everybody's invoices manually. I always put a footer note in. I'll show you later how to do a sort of default footer note that will show up on all your invoices. But for this one, I'll just type it out manually. I think it's important just to reference some of your policies that you get frequently asked questions about right on the invoice, and that should cut down on the number of emails you get about your invoices. So I like to put how I calculate my monthly tuition rates because that's one of the number one questions that I get. I also like to just mention that there will be a late payment just so that there's no surprises to anybody. And if you have any specific payment instructions, this would be a great place to put that. And just full disclosure on any fees. So here's our first student created, John Smith. Let's say that John has a sibling who's also starting, so let's add another student in from the same family. It's inviting us to schedule our lessons. Yes, we will do that in a moment, but right now let's get Jane Smith in here. Now we get to select an existing family so we don't have to enter in Judy's information all over again. And we'll just change these to the same monthly billing system that we wanted to do. We don't have to set up the automatic invoicing because obviously these two kids are going to be billed together from the same family. And there we go. It was as simple as that. Now, currently, if we were to create an invoice for this family, the invoice would be 0. And the reason is because they don't have any lessons scheduled on our calendar yet. So the system doesn't know that they're taking lessons and that they need to be billed. So we are going to go ahead and enter them into the calendar. Instead of an open lesson slot, let's choose the first student who's going to take a lesson. Now, I haven't set up the location yet, so I can't select a location. Let's go ahead and do that right now. At the top, click Options. It'll default to categories. Click on Locations, the next tab, and Add Location. Now, if all of your lessons happen in the same place, you can just call it something like Main Studio. This will become more relevant if you do have multiple practice rooms or multiple teachers. And let's just make this blue. You could enter an address as well. That way, when parents and students are logging on, if they forget what your address is, if they have a lesson scheduled with you, they'll be able to see your address. That is not my address, by the way. I just made that up. Click Save, and now this should show up when we are scheduling a student as a possible location. You can see there are also different lesson categories, and you can customize what colors you want those to show up on the calendar. So right now our default lessons are blue, recital will show up in gray. And then if I were to schedule in a vacation, for some reason that's defaulting to black. That's not a very fun vacation color. Let's make that lime green. So you can really customize this as much as you want. Notice they have a default for group lesson and lesson. One other option I like to offer is partner lessons. And so I make that its own category with its own color. And if you have another setup that you teach besides like just lesson or group lesson, you can also add your own category. Okay, let's go back to the calendar. The first lesson is on Tuesday, so that's where we're gonna add in John. He's at the main studio. He's starting on the 5th and his lesson's at 5. Always put your students to private on the calendar, because if you make them public, then all the other families who log in will see that lesson and think that it might be a lesson they can sign up for, and it causes a bunch of confusion. So just make it private and it'll make the calendar cleaner. I made this a recurring lesson just by clicking recurring and then weekly and then go on forever. So now John is scheduled for every Tuesday at 5 o'clock, forever and ever. Amen. Jane is going to go at 5:30. Now you can use this little scroll down thing. If you find that frustrating, just double click to select the whole thing, and it's pretty intuitive. Like I only typed in the number 5 and it just knew that I meant 5 p.m. You can type 5:30, it'll know it's 5:30. Let's make this recurring as well. We'll set it to private, and there John and Jane are coming every week on Tuesdays, starting on the 5th. Now from these calendar events, you can edit them, you can email the families, text the families, you can duplicate it, or you can delete it. You can also take attendance from here. So now if we go over to the Smith's account, by clicking on Families and Invoices, we can see that they are now billed for September. So John is being billed at 100, Jane at 100, so their balance is showing as 200 for the month of September. Click over to the Invoices tab, and we did set this up for automatic invoices, but let's go ahead and manually create an invoice so you can see what that will look like. Today's date, we are gonna make this actually retroactive. We are gonna make this for September, because they haven't paid for September yet. And we're gonna make a due date of the first lesson. We're gonna have them pay when they come on the first lesson. I'm gonna leave that at normal. And then I would copy and paste my little footer note in here. I'll just leave it blank for now to save some time. And we are going to email the invoice immediately. Actually, in this case, let's just create it, but we won't email it, so we can just take a look at it. It does take a second to create, as you can see. Oh, that's pretty quick. So if we click on these three little dots over here, we can view it, we can email it, we can download it, we can override it, we can add that they paid us, we can archive it, we can delete it. We're just gonna click on the date, which is the quick way to view it. So this is the default invoice template. Now we haven't changed anything about it, like the logo or the colors. I totally misspelled the word studio. Okay, we are Tosa Piano Studio. It is what it is, that's what it says. Okay, so we'll go in and customize this invoice so we can get it looking a little more on brand. But for now, that is looking pretty good. So from here, we could go ahead and email that to Judy if we wanted to. This default subject line and message is all set up in the back end as well, and I'll show you how to change that, but they have default messages that are pretty good. I am going to change earliest convenience to first lesson on Tuesday, September 5th, so that I clearly communicate what I'm expecting as far as the payment goes. And there we go, we can send it. Now there is one thing that is missing from this invoice. There should be a button that says click here to pay now or something like that. And that is not appearing on our invoices quite yet. The reason is because we have not set up any payment options as of yet on the back end. So our customers are not yet able to send payments from the invoice or through MyMusicStaff. So let's take care of that right now. Click on your name, go to Business Settings, and then click the tab that says Online Payments. Here you can set up your payment processor. MyMusicStaff accepts Stripe, PayPal Standard, which is if you have a PayPal account, that's what you already have, or PayPal Pro. Personally, I use PayPal Pro for my business, and that allows people to use either PayPal or credit card to pay you. You do have to sign up for this through PayPal. I do recommend using either Stripe or PayPal Pro because that will offer the credit card option for your families. Once you obtain your API username and all of your API numbers, then you would enter those here. So you do have to set that up through PayPal. Stripe, I personally have never used, but to use Stripe, you would just click on this and then follow the prompts and get that all going. For today's tutorial, I am simply just going to use a standard PayPal account, which you are welcome to do. It just means that your families would have to have a PayPal account to pay you, which most people do. So I'm going to go ahead and do the PayPal standard. Now I have a payment system set up so people can pay me. Now here it says payment processor settings. So we are going to go in and edit this. The reason we're going to edit this is because PayPal charges us, so we are going to pass that fee along to our customers. I like to check send an automatic email receipt when the online payment is received, but I don't bother sending a text receipt because I think that's a little excessive. That's just my personal preference. Personally, I do 4% for credit cards and bank transfers. You can do a flat fee, or you can do a percentage fee, or you can just do no fee, which I'm sure your customers would very much appreciate, and just work that into your costs. So let's go back over to Judy's account. And now if we create an invoice, let's create through this here. The invoice will now have the click here to pay online button. So this is what the parent would see when they click on the pay now button. Notice they're paying $208, and the $8 is that 4% fee that I added on. Okay, well, let's go in and customize how our invoice looks. Click on your name and go to Business Settings. And now we're going to click on the tab that says Accounts and Invoices. We're going to leave the family account settings the way they are. I'm going to go down to invoice formatting. Now here's where you could go ahead and upload your logo. By the way, if you have not created a logo yet, I have a video about that. So get your logo all set up. And hey, how about we spell our name right? Studio, not studio. All right, I like to generate an invoice number because it's just something to reference. It's kind of nice to have a number attached to it. I like to change this to show as balance remaining so that if they have a credit on their account, they can actually see what the credit is, not just that they don't owe anything. The options I'm going to leave as is. Now here's where you can put in your little default footer text. So you copy it here and then that will be the default footer on every invoice you create. So just make sure it's something generic enough that it applies to every single one of your students or families. All right, now brand colors. By the way, if you watch the logo video, we also pick out brand colors and you should have your hex code, which you could just copy and paste right here. All right, let's go back to Judy's account and let's just make her, why not? Third time's a charm. Let's make her a third invoice so we can see if our beautiful little logo and colors are showing up properly. So I shouldn't have to put anything in the footer note here. Oh, well, I didn't set anything in the default footer note, but that should appear. Looking good, looking good. Okay, so it says our name right at the top in our color. And if Judy did have an address in her account, that would show up here under her name. So here we are. Now the reason this says 400 due is because the invoice created itself for October, not September. So she still owes the 200 from September and then it's adding on the 200 for October. So that's what that's about. Okay, going back to our business settings here, click on email settings. Here are all of the email templates. Yes, there are a lot of them. So this is what someone would get if their automatic payment failed. So you just want to go through and set these all up once. The birthday email, I love it. For the most part, these are pretty good the way they are, but you might want to change, like maybe instead of your invoice, you want it to say something else. Maybe you want to take out the earliest convenience phrase or whatever. So just go through these and make sure that these are all what you want to say in your emails, and you'll save yourself a ton of time either copying and pasting or editing each individual one from here on out. Click on the Policies tab. Here's where you can enter in your cancellation policy. So if we are going to be using MyMusicStaff's makeup credit system to its fullest extent, where parents are using the calendar and signing up for makeup lessons, then you want to make sure you have this in place. So we are going to allow event cancellation on the platform. Let's say that we want people to cancel at least 48 hours in advance. Let's say if they cancel 48 hours in advance or more, then we just take them off the attendee list and there's no penalty or anything. Or let's say mark as absent, notice given, which means they would not be billed for that lesson if you're billing per lesson. We're not billing per lesson, so in this case it doesn't matter. And then when they cancel a lesson on the calendar, they are going to see this policy text right here. So take some time to write this out now, and then you won't have to worry about it later. They'll see it every time they click on this. The sign up policy is relevant if you want people to be able to sign up for events on their own or to sign up for makeup lessons. So let's say you want to put some open lesson slots in your calendar and just have people sign up for them. Then here is where you would decide, well, how much time do I need in advance to prepare for this? So right now it's set to 24 hours. I'll leave it at that, but you can decide. You might want to make it longer if you have a busy schedule. And then here's where you can figure out your makeup credit policy. So you may want to limit the number of makeup credits that a student could have so that they're not canceling unlimited lessons and getting makeup credits for those. So let's say like you want 2 makeup credits in their, virtual pocket at any given time. And let's say you want them to expire like after 60 days so that they're not waiting like 2 years before they use their makeup credits. So you can just decide how you want to use this. If you don't want to use makeup credits at all, you don't have to. Okay, click over to Student Portal. And under the permissions, I do like to allow parents and students to edit their own contact info. Personally, I like to make their initial page the calendar, because the number one question I get from parents is how do I, and then something to do with the calendar. How do I cancel a lesson? How do I sign up for a makeup lesson? How do I see when my next lesson is? So I thought, let's just make the homepage the calendar. The only other thing that I would do in the business settings is go to membership, and then you'll want to set up your payment method on file so that you don't have uninterrupted access to your MyMusicStaff account. So you can subscribe with credit card or PayPal for future months payments of $14.95. Now here is where I can change, or actually correct, the typo that I had from earlier. If I want to put my studio phone number and address in here, then that will show up for my students to see when they log in. So that can also be helpful. And then later on, if I want to update my logo, I can do so here as well. There's just one thing that we want to update in the My Preferences. Here where it says Attendance Preferences, I'm going to check Copy Forward Lesson Notes for Recurring Events. And that way you can see the last week's lesson notes already copied automatically, and you don't have to copy and paste them yourself. Earlier I had mentioned that you can change your default lesson time so that when you sign up a new student, it goes to what you want it to. So let's say that the majority of lessons that you teach are 40-minute partner lessons, which is my personal favorite, and you like to charge by the month and not by the lesson. And you charge, let's say, $120. Let's make that our default, and that way we don't have to change it for every new student that signs up. Only have to change it if it deviates from this default. Now that we've got all our settings set up, let me show you the expenses category. Underneath the credit card, you'll see these 4 boxes. That's the expenses and other revenue. Every time you spend a dime on your business, you are going to enter it right down here. So let's add new expense. Let's say we ordered some new bookshelves off of Amazon. Now here's where I want you to add some custom categories to make tax time easier. Now they do have teaching supplies. You could put everything under teaching supplies, but personally, I like to split it up between teaching supplies and office expenses because my tax professional has suggested that some of my fees go under office expenses, some go under advertising to keep them separate from the teaching supplies on the Schedule C for tax time. So we're going to say these bookshelves are under office expenses. This is not a recurring expense. We're going to leave that unchecked, and let's say we spent $30. In the description box, you want to put what the item is. So bookshelf for main studio area, and then you'll put the order number there. And then here's where you can upload a screenshot of the receipt or the web page of the order confirmation if you want to. Now when we save that, our office expense will be down here. And as you can see, that's going to bring down our net income for the month. And it's going to bring up our expenses. So make sure that you make it a habit to come to the expenses and other revenue every time you spend a dime on your business, so that when it comes time for taxes, here's all you have to do. Go down to Business Reports, click Create Report. Report type will be Revenue and Expenses. In this case, we're going to do expenses only to keep them separate. All categories, all payees, and let's say we wanted to do, let's do our current year so far. Well, let's just do December. Why not? We'll do the entire year, even though we only have one expense on there. We're going to sort it by date. Itemized is great. And we're going to do this in a PDF, although you can also do an Excel format. Click Create. Give it a moment to process. When it's done, you'll be able to click on the word expense Here we go. Okay, now I only have one expense, but here it is. And then it's going to total it all out. So at the end of the year, when you have, maybe 100 different expenses, they're already totaled for you. They're already going to be categorized. And your tax person will love you for that. Then you can just download or print that from here and you're good to go. One other item on the menu that I want to highlight is the news and blog posts. I don't use this a whole lot, but I do like to put news that's going to show up on the student and the parent portals. So let's say we have a recital coming up, something like that. Save it, and then when the parent logs in to the student portal, they will see upcoming recital and they can click on it and read it. Let's enter in one more pair of new students to show you how that all works. Actually, sorry, we need to go to students first. So we'll add new student, child, and this is a new family. And we do need to enter email address and phone number. Now you can see the default partner lessons, 40 minutes, pay by the month, and the price that I entered before are automatically coming up. You can change them if you want, but that's perfect. Now, before I click next, I actually forgot about something that I told you not to forget about, and that is to click the show additional details. And let's say they found us through a Google search. We will set up the automatic invoicing. Now we don't want to bill them in September, so we're going to make the next billing cycle start on October 1st. We want to bill them every month on the 1st of the month. However, I want their invoice to go out to them before the 1st of the month, so I'm going to make it due, let's say, a week before, 7 days before the billing start. And then we're going to make their due date a week after. So that way they have a couple weeks to pay. All right, I like how that looks, so I'm going to choose next. I'm going to leave that all the way it is, but I'm going to click automatically send invoices on the invoice date. That way they will get that invoice at the end of September so they know to pay in October. And there they are. Now I'm going to add another student who's going to be a partner for Hans. Add new student. Not going to skip over the show additional details again. We'll set up their invoicing in the exact same way. Perfect. And it remembered that I wanted to automatically send the invoice. Great. Okay, now we can rest assured that those invoices are going to go out when we want them to those families. However, those invoices, if they were to go out right now, would be blank because we haven't scheduled them on the calendar. So now we're going to go over to the calendar on the left side menu. And if you recall, they are on Tuesdays. However, they are not starting in September. They're starting in October. So I'm going to click over to October. They're starting on the 3rd. And let's do quick add lesson. And what I'm going to do is first, I'm just going to select one of the partners. We click it to private so it doesn't show up on other students' calendars. And then we're going to save that. Now right now it's a partner lesson without a partner. So it does show up in yellow, but there's only one student who is registered for it currently. So what I'm going to do is I will click on this and then click the pencil to edit the event. Now I can add in Bella. Now there's 2 attendees. It's a partner lesson. It starts at 6, it's 40 minutes. That all looks good. It's a recurring event that repeats weekly. And we're gonna go with the student default price that I already set up for each individual student. I don't need to put anything public on the calendar. So I'm going to click, I'm going to click save this and future events. If I were to click save this event, it would add Bella to this one lesson, but not to the rest. So I have to click save this in future events so that each weekly lesson Bella is added. And there they are. So now if I click on this one, it'll show me that there are 2 attendees and it's Hans and Bella. There are many more things that you can adjust or change the settings on in MyMusicStaff, but those are the main things I think you need to get started. So join me on the next MyMusicStaff tutorial where we are going to walk through what to do when you have that first day of teaching, when your students walk in, how to mark them present, how to enter lesson notes and send those to the families, and how to receive payments. Be sure to subscribe for more MyMusicStaff tips and tutorials. This setup is just one of 12 actionable steps in my 30-day Start Your Studio challenge. Sign up below to receive all of the steps that I think you need to do before you teach that first lesson to get your business set up and organized in a way that's going to serve you. To keep watching, the next step is we're going to set up your social media accounts for your new piano teaching business. I'll see you there.